Jake Rowen was chasing a secret. Simon Bellamy was trying to bury it, and by sunrise, one man was dead in the snow while the other had vanished without a trace from one of the most powerful homes in the state. On the night of January 3rd, a fierce snowstorm swept across Hawthorne Ridge, turning roads into rivers of ice and silencing the quiet town under a heavy white blanket. Most homes went dark, their inhabitants huddled by fireplaces, waiting for the storm to pass. But at the top of the ridge, one estate stood brightly lit, untouched by the chaos. The Carrington Mansion, known for its grand architecture and powerful occupants, glowed against the blizzard's fury. That night, it played host to what some later called the Blizzard Party, a private gathering of wealthy elites, held behind tall iron gates and walls of secrecy. Inside, the party was a display of luxury. Music thumped softly through the mansion's many rooms, champagne flowed freely, and staff moved with precision to cater to every guest. Thick rugs and marble floors muffled footsteps, and enormous fireplaces roared with warmth. Guests wore tailored coats, silk scarves, and smiles that hid deep connections. Outside, security guards paced the property line, their black coats nearly invisible against the snow, watching for anything unusual. Few imagined that just beyond their reach, something unthinkable was unfolding. By morning, as plows cleared paths and the town began to thaw, a grisly discovery sent shockwaves through Hawthorne Ridge. Near the estate's front gate, a body lay twisted and half covered in snow. Emergency services arrived quickly, but it was too late. The victim was Jake Rowen, a 29-year-old freelance journalist from Brooklyn. No ID was found on him, just a backpack containing a water-damaged notebook, a broken camera, and a white flash drive. He had no known connection to the Carrington family or the guests that night. News of the incident spread quickly. People questioned how a man could die just feet from one of the most secure homes in the region without anyone noticing. The Carringtons issued a brief statement expressing sorrow, but offered no details. They claimed the man never entered the party and that none of their guests knew who he was. Still, questions mounted. Why had Jake come there in the middle of a snowstorm? Why was he alone, dressed so lightly? And if he wasn't inside, how did traces of luxury whiskey served only at the party end up in his system? The storm may have buried the town in snow, but it had uncovered something far more chilling. In the days following Jake Rowen's death, investigators tried to piece together his final movements. It quickly became clear that his arrival at the Carrington Estate wasn't random. Footage from a nearby traffic camera showed him exiting a bus at a stop nearly 2 miles from the mansion. From there, he walked through the snow alone, choosing a wooded path that curved behind the estate rather than approaching from the main road. The storm was already in full force, with visibility low and temperatures dropping. Still, Jake pressed forward, his backpack clutched tightly against him. Detectives found his footprints preserved in the snow, leading directly to the edge of the Carrington property. They also discovered something odd at one point. The trail veered toward an auxiliary service entrance, rarely used and hidden from view. That door was unlocked when police checked it the following day. No one had reported it being opened or tampered with. It raised a troubling possibility. Jake may have entered the mansion undetected. His backpack offered few clues. The camera was waterlogged, its memory card blank. His notebook was nearly unreadable, with smeared ink and torn pages. What little they could salvage hinted at some kind of investigation. Scribbled names, half-finished sentences, and one repeated phrase stood out: truth behind the storm. Investigators weren't sure what it meant, but it was clear Jake had a purpose that night. He hadn't simply wandered into danger, he was following a lead. His family confirmed he'd been working on a story, but he hadn't told anyone what it was about. Friends mentioned that Jake had grown paranoid in the weeks leading up to his death. He spoke of powerful people hiding terrible secrets, and hinted that he was close to uncovering something that could change everything. Most assumed he was exaggerating, trying to break into the big leagues of journalism with a sensational piece. No one imagined it would cost him his life. Inside the Carrington mansion, the party carried on uninterrupted that night. Guests sipped rare cocktails and discussed business deals under crystal chandeliers, unaware or unwilling to acknowledge that a man was dying just beyond the gate. The Carringtons insisted Jake never entered, but the unlocked service door, the erased footage, and the traces of their exclusive whiskey in his blood suggested otherwise. Something had happened that night, and someone didn't want the truth getting out. As the investigation deepened, authorities focused on the 4-hour window in which Jake Rowen's movements became a mystery. Between PM and 2 a.m., there were no confirmed sightings of him, and all security footage from the Carrington estate during that time had gone dark. The official explanation from the family's spokesperson was that a storm-related power issue caused the cameras to temporarily fail, but technicians later confirmed that the mansion's backup generators were fully operational and had kept the rest of the estate running without interruption. It was a convenient gap in surveillance, and it raised serious questions about what might have happened during those missing hours. The medical examiner's report only added to the puzzle. Jake's body showed signs of early hypothermia, but there were additional injuries inconsistent with exposure alone. A bruise on his right shoulder, scrapes on his palms, and a small cut on his head suggested a confrontation of some kind. Despite these signs, there were no fingerprints on his body or belongings, and no defensive wounds severe enough to indicate a prolonged struggle. It appeared whatever happened had been brief, but violent enough to leave a mark. A toxicology report revealed the presence of a rare high-end whiskey in Jake's system. Investigators matched it to a bottle served at the party, an exclusive blend not available to the public. It confirmed one thing: at some point that night, Jake had come into direct or indirect contact with someone inside, but none of the party's 30 guests nor any of the staff interviewed admitted to seeing him. It was as if he had moved through the event like a ghost, invisible to everyone but clearly impacted by something that happened behind those walls. Further examination of Jake's water-damaged notebook uncovered one legible name: S. Bellamy. Simon Bellamy was a tech investor and close associate of the Carrington family. He had attended the party and was documented leaving shortly after M. Investigators noted that Simon never responded to initial inquiries about the incident. When they tried to contact him again, he had already vanished. His phone was off, his house was locked, and his vehicle was missing. The coincidence was too large to ignore. Jake had been investigating someone. Now Simon was gone, and for a brief span of 4 hours, all evidence from the estate vanished with them. The snowstorm may have hidden tracks, but it couldn't hide the patterns beginning to emerge. Simon Bellamy's disappearance changed the course of the investigation entirely. At first, authorities believed Jake Rowen had simply trespassed onto the Carrington property and succumbed to the freezing temperatures. But when Simon failed to return home after the blizzard party, suspicions escalated. He was last seen on the estate's driveway, captured briefly by a security camera that had come back online around 3:15 a.m. His black SUV pulled away into the snowy darkness, and from that point on, there was no trace of him. The SUV was found 2 days later, abandoned in a snowbank off a rural service road. The driver's side door was ajar, keys still in the ignition, but there were no footprints in the snow leading away from the vehicle. It was as if Simon had vanished into thin air. Investigators scoured the area but found nothing: no tracks, no signs of a struggle, no indication of where he had gone. The car's GPS history showed no unusual stops before it veered off the road. Inside, the only clue was a business card belonging to a private security firm known to work for the Carringtons. Simon's assistant, under pressure from the media, admitted that Jake Rowen had contacted her just days before the party. He claimed to have information that could ruin Simon's career and insisted on a meeting. She ignored the message, thinking it was a bluff or a scam. Now, both men were gone, one dead, the other missing. Further digging into Simon's past revealed something troubling. A former employee had accused him of misconduct years ago, but the case was settled quietly. His investments were rumored to be tied to controversial tech surveillance firms. Jake's last few published articles had focused on the ethics of digital privacy and corporate corruption. It seemed he had been following a trail that led directly to Simon and perhaps beyond. Despite the growing links between Jake and Simon, the Carrington family remained silent. They denied any knowledge of Jake's presence at the party and claimed Simon had left of his own free will. But whispers of a confrontation spread. Some theorized that Jake had confronted Simon that night, demanding answers or threatening exposure. If so, it was possible someone decided to silence both of them. What started as a single death now looked more like the unraveling of a larger, hidden network. And the Carrington mansion stood silent, towering above the town, guarding whatever secrets the snowstorm had buried. 3 weeks after the blizzard, as winter slowly loosened its grip on Hawthorne Ridge, a maintenance crew clearing a rarely used access road near the Carrington estate made a startling discovery. Buried beneath layers of packed snow was a damaged smartphone. Investigators confirmed it belonged to Simon Bellamy. The screen was shattered, the battery nearly dead, but the device still held data. Forensic technicians recovered fragments of messages, photos, and one corrupted video file. Only a few seconds of it were playable, but what remained sent shockwaves through the investigation. The video appeared to be recorded in haste. The image was blurry, dark, and shaky, possibly taken during the blizzard. In the final clear moment, Jake Rowen's voice was heard, breathing heavily, saying a name. Then the clip cut to static. Authorities never released the name he spoke. Officially, they claimed it was too distorted to be useful. Unofficially, rumors spread that the name belonged to someone inside the Carrington family. Despite public pressure, the Carringtons issued no further statements. Their lawyers insisted the family had nothing to hide, but they refused additional interviews and declined to share any remaining surveillance footage. The guest list from the blizzard party was sealed. Investigators, lacking conclusive proof of a crime, were forced to close the case with no charges filed. Jake's death was ruled as hypothermia under undetermined circumstances. Simon's disappearance remained an open missing person report, but for those following the case closely, the conclusion didn't feel like an end, it felt like a cover-up. Too many questions were left unanswered. How had Jake's blood contained a rare whiskey only served inside the mansion? Why did the security system conveniently fail during the critical hours? What caused Simon Bellamy, a powerful and connected man, to vanish without a trace? And most chillingly, what had Jake uncovered that night, and why had it been worth dying for? In the years since, local legends have grown around the blizzard party. Some say Jake's spirit still lingers near the estate's gate. Others believe Simon was silenced to protect something much larger, something that stretched beyond one family and one night. Whatever happened in the shadow of that storm, it remains locked behind cold walls and colder hearts. The snow has long melted, but the silence around that night is as heavy as ever. The truth lies buried, just like the man who walked into a storm chasing it.